everybody. Welcome back to Retained Trust. And today I have my good friend and business partner, Manuel Weiss. Manny, good to see you.
Hi, good to see you too. Yeah.
Longtime listeners will know we do these updates about once a quarter. I think we're a couple weeks behind here, but this life happens, right? We've been pretty consistent, to be fair. So I'm glad we're sticking with this. These are always some of my favorite episodes.
Yes.
Today, I thought we're recording this in October 2025 for anybody listening in the future. So today I thought we would kind of recap the last quarter, some of the highs, lows, things we're learning, and then kind of talk through some of the personal stuff we're going through as well, at least at a high level. So Manny, for you, what's been some of the highlights? What are some of the goods that have been happening lately?
Yeah, from a business perspective, it's been really nice to see one of our operating businesses, the Podcast Consultant, working really well without pretty much a lot of my involvement, I would say. Like you and I recently looked at our time tracking, and I think my percentage month over month for the Podcast Consultant was like, I think 14% of my time went into that business, which is great to see because, profitable and things are working well there. Of course, they can always work better, right? But this is really nice to see because that is what we had in mind, right? Buy a business, improve operations, improve processes, and then being able to take ourselves out as much as possible. And on the personal level, I'm things that are going well are that I love seeing my daughter grow up. She's in kindergarten now and things are going well. She has her first few friends, which is amazing to see for me. And I recently took a trip to Copenhagen with a good friend of mine that was really inspiring and re-energizing. So things are going well here. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. The Podcast Consultant has been kind of my bright spot too. I was talking to some people at an acquisition meetup the other day and telling them about how it's gone. Because a lot of the people there are kind of looking to buy a business. They haven't bought one yet. And so I was kind of recapping some of it. And, there's two ways to look at it. We've bought it 2.5 years ago, and we haven't really managed to grow the top line super significantly. And so you could look at that as like a meh result. But at the same time, when you compare time spent that we're personally putting into it and profit coming out of it and cash flow, it's been a great deal. And so, again, I think there's lots of ways to measure your success and you have to decide what your priorities are. For us, it's been kind of, can this be something we can sort of set and not forget, but just kind of keep the wheels moving every week on team calls and will that work? And so far, so good. So
the larger strategy is to buy more of these businesses.
Right.
So we have to make the time available for ourselves to work on sourcing and, negotiating and this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it also kind of pushes us to get better about not coming in and doing all the tactical work ourselves, when we can help it. And that's kind of, we'll get to this when we talk about lowlights, but that's then kind of on the other flip side, the challenge on the other side of the other company we have. I would say, the Podcast Consultant doing well. I think what's been cool to see is like inbound leads are steady and strong without a lot of new sales efforts. We tried this last quarter to do some cold outreach and didn't really get much in the way of hits.
We got some bookings, but not really any conversions.
But it wasn't really ROI positive. And given the cost, we've kind of put that on pause for now, and we're trying some other things. Like a lot of entrepreneurs, the way we look at marketing channels is, put them in place, try them for a set period of time. And if it delivers some results that you want, or the sort of directionally the results you want, then you keep going and try a little longer. Maybe if it doesn't, then you start to wind it down and find something else to experiment with. Right.
Yes.
And especially with channels like outreach and paid advertising, where you're constantly paying into those channels, I think you really want to see that ROI and start to see it coming out in 3-6 months.
Right. And the nice thing is, you have the numbers, right? You can calculate the cost per lead. You can calculate how many leads need to come in from a channel to actually close a deal, etc. It's like one of the quotes that I don't know, like 10 years ago or something. I said this at a meetup. I said, numbers are people and they deserve to be understood. And whenever you can measure anything with numbers in marketing experiments, that's just so helpful, because then you can, let two different experiments battle against each other, and the winner wins, and that's what you go with. you define the next experiment and let the winner fight against that new experiment, right? And that's how you go about it. And at first, the Outbound project seemed promising because we did get consistent bookings, like pretty much every week we got bookings. But yeah, they did not turn out to be any kind of leads that would convert into actual closed deals.
And maybe we're a little bit spoiled because so many of our leads come in through inbound and referrals. And I think this is a common challenge with agencies like ours that have got good inbound flywheels going. It's hard to justify outbound and paid acquisition because it ends up being so much more expensive per actual closed deal, and the timelines can be longer. People come in with less trust, initially. So it's just a harder cycle.
The nice thing is it would have been something that we would have been able to outsource. But for example, something with a much better ROI was you did, for the podcast consultant specifically, you did events. For the first time, really, you went to some niche events, and just from your feeling, it was much better. From building the actual relationship with potential clients and existing clients, it's just so much more worthwhile to do that.
I kind of think so, especially if you can get away with doing the events relatively cheap like we do. It's one thing if you have to pay $20,000 for a booth at a place, yeah. But if you're just attending and able to still get good quality meetings out of it, I think certainly a couple $1,000s on travel and events a year is very reasonable.
Just much more time intensive, obviously, than paying an outbound agency or yeah.
Yeah, and it's not quite as scalable. There's only so many events worth going to, and there's probably diminishing returns, and so. Yeah, but something to continue experimenting with, at least with a little bit of budget. On a personal note for me, the highlight, I finished my first half marathon in like 6 years, which was really exciting. I used to do a lot of them and have been on hiatus due to nagging injuries, which, I'm hitting that age in life where that stuff starts to stack up.
It's a high impact sport, running. It literally hurts.
It does. And I'm a big person, so, yeah. So it doesn't help. I was super jazzed though to do that. My good friend Ricky here in Chicago did it at the same time. We ran the first bit together and then kind of split off. And so, but it was really fun to go back into a race with other people. Like, I haven't run with other people in a long time now. So that was a lot of fun, and glad to be back into that.
We've been talking about the podcast consultant a bit and the experiments we're in there and how things are going well there. Maybe the listeners also would like to hear things that are not going well, because that's life. Some things are going well, some things are not going well, and it's all about how you handle that and
it
view
is.
them.
Yeah, that's been, for sure. When we go into learnings, I think you learn a lot more when times are not going quite so well than you do when times are great.
Yeah.
The low light, I think for both of us probably, is that draft.dev has really been, it's been, I would say, just overall struggling. And the indicators that we look at there are, the revenue's actually been okay, and profit margin, we've kept it profitable. But that said, the leading indicators going into, Q4 and then into next year are not looking as good. So in other words, sales calls booked, sales calls closed, deals in the pipeline, those were all really, really falling down by this summer.
And let's remind people of how things were going, like when we had our previous recording. Like, we already were experimenting with repositioning draft.dev a little bit, because we were seeing some signs in the market that, like, around AI and outsourcing to agencies versus internally using AI and experimenting with that, we were seeing some clear signals. Okay, things are changing here. And we defined a new product offering, which seemed to somewhat stick. But then we realized, actually, not really. And so we had this interesting challenge of people being intrigued by this new offering, but then also having legacy clients who demanded the old offering, but they need to renew, and we are not sure if they will renew, et cetera, right? So maybe talk a little bit about what has happened since we had this recording.
Yeah, so since this summer, I took over sales, and I think what I've picked up from this is that there are certain situations where it takes an entrepreneur's skill set to kind of figure things out. And what I mean is, hired salespeople are good at selling something that is well defined and understood, and that we have collateral for, and use cases for, and proof points for, and other clients doing, right? They're not as good, and they're probably never gonna, this is not realistic to expect them to be good at this. They're not good at sort of making up something to sell on the fly based on what a customer is telling you they want. And that's super, I mean, I'll admit that's hard, right? Like that is what entrepreneurs do, is in my mind. And this is where normal salespeople will never be able to do that kind of thing. It's not that they're incapable. It's just that they don't have the same open-endedness in their approach to things. As an entrepreneur, I'm going to figure out what it is I can do to help you solve your problem. Whereas a regular salesperson is like, I have one solution. Does it fit? If not, then move on.
And this applies to not just sales, also, for example, I was talking about, we defined this new product offering, and then we realized it doesn't say, okay, right, a specific type of personality would be extremely frustrated by this, but my mindset is more like, okay, rapid execution of experiments, see what sticks, right? We're totally comfortable running against the wall as long as we realize, hey, we just ran against the wall. Now let's try something else, right? And I can talk a little bit more in detail in a bit about how we ended up at our current positioning that we are using now and how we message that, because that might be interesting to some of the listeners.
So like the market context is, in general, people looking at marketing agencies are more nervous to propose budget up the chain to people. They're afraid of adding to their marketing costs or getting locked into something that doesn't have certainty. What I perceive in the market is there's just this general fear of this kind of uncertainty bubbling around with everybody's head. And a lot of it has to do with our specific piece of content and kind of clients too, because content marketing is a little more uncertain than it used to be, because SEO is changing and everybody's worried about what LLMs will do to it. Everybody's worried about how to create content that is good enough to actually get indexed and picked up. And then, you can't measure, like, citations in LLM are not as strong of a click-through rate as SEO has been traditionally. So there's lots of things just, again, fundamentally changing about content and content marketing. And nobody, to be perfectly honest, knows exactly where this is all going to go. And so a channel that used to be very tried and true and steady in this industry of developer marketing has now become much more uncertain. That's my perception of like what's happened. And so people coming into these sales calls did not just want to hear, oh, well, you guys can write us content. We know content works, so that's a great idea. Whereas now, how we've positioned this has changed a lot to sort of match that uncertainty, would be the way I would call it.
Yeah, and plus, if our direct contact at the business is not the main decision maker, we've experienced that the person we talk with just tries to delay, figuring out what's going to be the new budget. Is there maybe something? It's more like, it's much more fear driven now than opportunity seeking, I would say. People don't want to make mistakes. They don't want to waste money. They want to see how the SEO, AEO space is developing. What are the things that are actually working? And so the market is much more softer in that regard. And we realized that. And so now we have morphed our product offering into something that's more aligned with what these people are seeking at the moment.
Yeah. So in the past, Draft.dev sold high quality technical content pieces written by engineers, and they were very detailed. Every piece was very detailed. We could write whatever the client proposed we write. It was done at, took 6 to 8 weeks to deliver a single piece of content. So we had to do them in batches and plan way ahead. And the result of that was a lot of waiting and uncertainty, and a lot of time passed before you could prove, quote unquote, that these articles were good or worked, right? So that's the problem. That was not selling as this spring and summer when I kind of stepped in and started working on it. So what we've designed now is an offering that centers around driving results as quickly as possible through a working content engine. It involves us taking on more of the process. We get involved from the strategy from the very go. We don't write just whatever the client says. We actually build a strategy that we believe will work ahead of time. And what that allows us to do is create certain kinds of content that are much faster to produce, that are easier for a mix of knowledgeable human and good AI workflow to actually produce at a high quality level. but also still have some, budget set aside to work on some of these deep, longer pieces that take more time for everybody to review, more time for everybody to kind of like get all the innards working correctly, the actual code examples working, the actual tutorial running, all that stuff. So it allows us to kind of take the best of both worlds. We can do some content fast to drive some quick wins, and then we can have this, longer, more in-depth content going at the same time. And then we also get into promotion as well for clients. And again, this is kind of based on just seeing how clients struggled to get results from content, because all they did was just publish and forget it, if they even published. And now we've just taken over more of that cycle, so we can actually come to them every 3 months and say, look, here's the difference, the delta in your appearances in LLMs, your appearances in search engines, your appearances through social, and how the content is driving those results forward. And that's a lot more powerful of a call to action to clients to work with us, because we're sort of saying we're going to prove it to you as long as you trust us throughout the process.
And I think two interesting things worth mentioning here is that this is derived now from actual conversations with prospects and existing clients, what they would actually want to see. So it's not just guesswork. We actually did some proper research and interviews around that, right? And I think that we had this in-between stage where we realized something needs to change, and worked on some positioning and messaging that was more geared towards AI workflows and extremely fast delivery, but benefiting from our 300 plus engineers and our editors and journalists in the background, right? And I was actually quite convinced that would be really good. Messaging, that is what the people actually need right now. It's like everybody talks about AI, and now suddenly they are being a content agency that can understand AI, but still has the experts in the loop and just doesn't deliver any kind of AI output, but really making sure the technical quality is pristine. I thought that would be the one we go with, but then turns out when you presented that during prospect calls with sales prospects, that was not what actually hit them. For them, it was, yes, the fast turnaround time, but much more this amalgamation of a breadth of different content types working together and building this compounding growth engine based on content marketing. And so this is what we ended up with now. So that was the one point I wanted to make. And the other point I wanted to make was, I think our split up in work here was really good, because you were heads down, let me get conversations with existing clients and with potential clients and just see what the market actually says. Whereas I then in the background figure out, okay, whatever you are promising in these calls, we internally have to set up the systems and processes to actually make that happen with the margins that work for us. And so that has been quite exciting for me to, obviously our goal is not to do extreme amounts of IC work, individual contributor work, but it has been somewhat enjoyable for me to go in and dig really deep into, okay, these existing processes that have worked extremely well for a certain set type of client, but don't work for this new type of client. What can we use from that, but what also can we start changing around? And that's been very exciting to me.
Yeah, for sure. And it's been a really good, to me, like a reiteration of something that I learned early on at draft.dev, and I've been a little removed from since, because we haven't, had to do the product market fit finding again. But just the reminder of how important having real conversations with customers is to finding product market fit. And I've talked about this, I think, on this show and many times in other podcasts before. The way I found product market fit quickly with draft.dev the first time was I lined up as many calls as I could with potential, the types of people who could buy our services. And that's basically the same format I followed here. And it wasn't sales calls. These were just literally, I want to catch up. I want to learn from you. I want to, ask you questions about your industry, about your space, about what you're doing, what you're feeling, what kinds of things you're doing, trying. So my first goal stepping into sales with draft.dev was I need to get 10 calls a week on the book with the people who could potentially buy or partner with us or something, right? Somebody who's in this space who knows it, and start just asking them questions. And those questions led to, our first tries at repositioning. And then those, conversations from there led to finding a bit of a a spot where we're like, okay, this is starting to hit. And, we're starting to see those indicators. I think it's still early. Like, I want to give this another month before I'm going to be like super confident, but we're starting to have people come off sales calls and say, oh, this is exactly what I need right now. And not, let me think about it for another few months and we'll see if it works in the budget next year, which is what we were getting earlier this year. So very different tone coming out of those calls.
One thing I think that's very much worth mentioning here is, right, so we had a setup where we were also quite hands-off with draft, and suddenly we're stepping in and doing, like, taking over a bunch of the work, reimagining the business, reimagining what we offer or how it is being offered. So I think hats off to the existing team at Draft.dev, because that's obviously a very uncomfortable time to experience something like that, but they have been great in accommodating, adjusting, and living with some significant uncertainty over a period of time. So yeah, I think that's really worth mentioning, that the team, has been great through all of this.
Yeah, it's been uncomfortable, I think, for them and us at times too, because we're kind of stepping on toes here. But the thing I've taken away from this is there's certain times in a business's cycle where it needs an entrepreneur's kind of eye at it. And the kinds of things we're doing, finding product market fit on a company and then rebuilding the processes from the ground up, those are not things that I would expect a normal employee to do. It's just, it's fundamentally an entrepreneurial task. And so that's been a big learning to me, is like my role as the overseer of these small companies is to make sure that when an entrepreneur's hand is needed, we have the ability to jump in there and do that. Because without it, I think honestly, like Draft.dev in its its past form would probably just have slowly faded away over the course of the last couple of years. And I will say the data I have to that is like several of our competitors have basically just faded away in the last couple of years. Yeah. And so I don't actually, I think that's legitimately what would have happened had we not jumped in. And again, we're still early here, but like, I do think that we're finding something again.
Yeah, which I think this is a good segue into a big topic that in this last few weeks was circling around our head, which is opportunity cost. Right, we have talked about, the podcast consultant runs pretty well without us, but I mean, if we would be more involved, it probably would generate more revenue. I still have my big list of things I'm certain would improve margins for us.
So many ideas, yeah.
It's working well enough, so I'm not going in and implementing them. But it has to be said, right? We are working here on reimagining, redeveloping Draft.dev. Would that time potentially be more opportunistically spent with improving either the podcast consultant or working on some other deals that we can pull into our holding company structure? And for now, you and I have defined it's definitely worth working on Draft.dev. We have enough. And first of all, it's worth working on it just in terms of the revenue and profit potential, but also I think we have a duty around our existing clients, which are still it's not like we have a handful of clients. There's a bunch of clients here that we want to serve and do right by them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing that's I've learned from this experience too, is that even when you get a big, sales dip or, your leading indicators are showing things are going to be bad, you're not starting over from zero. Draft.dev gets steady inbound interest from the right kinds of target accounts, and sometimes big companies, sometimes small companies. There's a range there and the range of what they're looking for. But we've done a good job over the years positioning ourselves, branding ourselves, being a presence in social media and on in content we've done. So we don't, it's never going to go to quote unquote zero in a sense of like it has zero value. Now, the question is, can we recapture value or build an engine that recaptures value at Draft.dev and then allows us to remove ourselves again in the next 6 to 12 months? That's the challenge. And so we'll see if we can get there. At some point, we may say like, hey, look, we're not figuring it out and we got to move on. But I don't think we're close to that yet.
Yeah, I agree. There's plenty of things we can still.
Yeah, plenty of things. Yeah, right. Your idea of backlog, ideas, we both probably got them for Draft and TPC. It's just like part of the entrepreneur's challenge is just filtering that down to the 2 or 3 things you can actually do every quarter.
Yes.
So the other thing that I wanted to say that I've been focused on personally and learning through this experience has been trying to separate my personal sense of confidence and self-worth from the performance of the business. Like this sounds really like philosophical almost or something, but it's super hard. Yeah. So here's how I'll just illustrate this very simply. When draft.dev was doing really well and I was, very hands off beginning of this year, things were going smoothly and I was hands off from both businesses and we were working on new acquisitions. I was riding high, right? Like I'm thinking I'm so smart and this is all so great and I know what I'm doing all the time and I can talk to anybody and do anything. And then, sort of things start to fade and I'm like jumping back in doing individual contributor work I didn't want to do and I start to like lose that and I'm just feeling this like, oh, do I even know what I'm doing anymore? Like, is this like, should I just fold up and go get a job again? And I don't know that I was really close to that, but
I mean, you closed 5 deals for draft.dev this week. So I think that's something
but even so, I think even that is a caution to me. It's like, I don't want my personal sense of value and confidence to be floating with this business in tandem, right? Like I want them to be separate.
Karl, this is so hard. This is also like the big topic for me. I remember when I was at school, I already said this is the best and easiest time of my life. And somebody, like a friend, asked me why. And I said, well, you have exams every now and then. You get graded and then are you good or are you not good? And it's like, I remember vividly not saying my work was good. I said, I am good or I am not good. And it's to this day, it's still so coupled. And I've been working hard as well I think like having like my partner in life, my wife, Christina, has really helped with that. But I remember when I was, building my first business, and just my life was the work. Like I woke up at 6 a.m. and I worked until like 10 p.m. or something like that, 7 days a week for years. Like not healthy, I can tell you. And obviously then everything that's happening at work, you reflect it onto, well, that's me, right? Because every waking minute you spend on that thing. And if the thing is not doing well, then it means you are not doing well. And that's, it's so important to, not have that happen. But I think especially with the entrepreneurial mindset with you and me, I don't think we'll ever get fully rid of that. It's just setting in place the things we know work that soften that a little bit. But I think, and here already you said all philosophical. Here comes me now saying, well, maybe it's actually not just a disadvantage. It's actually a real advantage to couple yourself and your worth to your output. And it's like, I don't even want to think too much in that direction, but there's certainly something. I know my like inferiority complex when I was young really drove my success, right? I'm a guy from small Austria and I went to the US. And it's like, it was all because I thought like, I'm not good enough, but I want to prove. I'm not good enough, but I want to prove, right? And so if you're always satisfied with yourself, I probably wouldn't have gone to the US. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have met you. We wouldn't have these businesses, right? So it's like, you can rationalize for yourself. It is actually a good thing. But as I often say, if you're always out of your comfort zone and always feel bad, then you're uncomfortable. So it's good to step out of your comfort zone quite a bit. But if it's 100% of the time, then you're just uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's not. Well, yeah, right. At some point, that's like not sustainable. Yeah, I feel like you do. I agree. Like I grow and learn a lot personally from the periods where things get hard and I struggle. But I want to be doing that growing and learning without thinking of myself as less viable of an entrepreneur or less successful of a person or less, content. And because there's so many, I was kind of thinking about this when things were at a bit of their like grayest with draft, where I was just like, oh, are we going to figure this out? Or are we just gonna have to like, slowly wind this down? And, I was kind of doing an accounting of my life, like all the good things I have going on. I'm like, back to healthy enough to run a half marathon. My kids and family are healthy and like our relationships are all good. There's plenty of, we have financial security. We're going to be fine, like all these things. And I'm like, this is like one tiny element of my life that is slightly suboptimal and I'm friggin' losing sleep over it. It's so dumb. Like again, irrationally, but it is hard. It's very hard to separate.
It is definitely very hard. Yeah.
talking about it with more entrepreneurs. I've been very open about it with a lot of people and hearing their stories where they feel that similarly, and they, I would say the majority of us who are fairly successful at this do feel some level of this. And so I don't think this is unusual. But yeah, how they work on it. And then I started working with a coach again, and a personal coach. And that's been really helpful just to get another outside perspective.
I think the hard thing is to establish mental distance from the work, because it's like, as you say, right, you and I, we both wake up in the nights and we think about work. It's like not a rare occasion, but thankfully it's not every night, at least for me. But it definitely happens at least once a week. That is for sure, right? And I think the goal is to achieve that emotional distance, because just like with your eyes, when you have a distance, you get a better perspective, you see what's happening. But if you're so close in front of it, you cannot really grasp what's going on. And so I can tell you, like last weekend, I have this friend that once per year we're trying to meet and do like visit a city, because he lives in another country to me, and we went to Copenhagen. And he's a great traveling partner for that kind of stuff, because he's tech savvy, but he's not in the tech industry, which is where my background is. But he uses AI a lot. He has a lot of interesting questions. He has a lot of different perspectives to the same topics that you and I are talking about a lot at the moment, right? Then we just go through a city and visit vinyl record stores. And it was 2.5 days. I took one Friday off, and I still feel so energized and recharged. And I feel like the challenges with Draft.dev and the opportunities that we have, like it's in such a more healthier way, not just like, oh, this is going, but actually being able to see what's going on and define plans around it and not be paralyzed by it.
Yeah, I think that you're hitting on something here, which is counterintuitively, when things are tough and it looks scary, instead of diving in and doing more work, like heads down, never removing yourself from it, you almost want to like step back and say, okay, pull back, do something completely out of this space for a bit and get my head straight on like a logical level. Because you're right. Like I find the same thing when I like pull out of this constant worry of the problems and just focus on something totally different for a while. I gain this perspective and I come back to the challenges, and I'm like, okay, let's make a plan here. Let's go through and like what actually matters, what's actually true, what things am I worrying about that we don't know yet. And
that's why talking really with a third party helps so much, right? And not just a party that just wants to support you, right? I don't know, you talk with like parents or spouses and they just want you to feel good and fine, so they just say, yeah, if it's so hard, maybe rest some more. That's all nice, that's what that's really nice, but that's not actually solving anything. Right. Even though maybe resting might help, but it's quite generic, but with the best intentions, obviously, right?
And I find non-entrepreneurs just don't get it at the same level either. They're again, it's not that we're better or anything like that. It's just a different kind of challenge, because our work is just so inherently tied to our person, and we can't just go get another job quite the same way that someone who is getting burned out at their job is going to look at that problem as maybe just go find a better job. And it's like, yeah, I don't think that's quite an option in the same way. Maybe you start a new company. Another thing I've observed, and I'm learning a lot about other entrepreneurs, is I think a lot of entrepreneurs have an unhealthy attachment to their business and look at it as an extension of themselves. And I actually think I don't do that as much as a lot of entrepreneurs do.
I agree.
We talk about acquisitions, and we've been having some early conversations with people around some ideas that we have for next year. And one of the things that's come up in a lot of those conversations has just been like this fear of letting go of their baby, or their control of their baby, or their destiny there. And it almost, to me, again, the attitude I feel from some of these entrepreneurs is like, this is their life's work. Like they kind of never want to leave it. And they know logically they should someday, they should eventually sell so they can actually benefit from it financially and all that. But like they really struggle with like separating there. And I don't know if this is partly because we've now bought a company and it's given us it's like, When you have two kids, you're a little less attached to each of them maybe than when you just have one or something. I'm just kidding. My kids are, I'm equally attached to both. No, but I think there's something there where it's like, I kind of have a sense of, for my businesses, that these are what we're working on today. These are not my life's work. They are the thing I'm doing this year. And next year, I'm allowing it to be different if I want.
I think this is interesting because a topic here is like control and giving up control. Because for me, I think it's not so much, this is my baby and I worked so hard on this and now I'm giving it away. When I sold my first business, like it was received and then we sold it to a larger company with 500 employees. I was like, this is sold now. It's not mine. They can do whatever they want with it. I might disagree, but hey, I made the choice. I sold it. But I think what's more is like when we talk, for example, I don't know, merging businesses together or taking over business, it's the control in terms of feeling that I or you and me have not just the best intentions, but also the best ideas, strategies, tactics that we can execute on, and being the best steward for that business and its success. Whereas some other people that then might come in and talk about things, doing things in a different way, sure, but I still feel like probably like I've done it before, grew business, sold it, now done it again, right? That kind of thing, the experience that you have, I think makes it harder than to let go or share the responsibility with other people that maybe achieve the same kind of successes, whatever success means, right? In different ways. And so it's a big factor of trust in a person that when you talk about acquisitions or mergers, you don't know that well, and takes time to know somebody well. And really, you can have a lot of calls and even meet in person, but who opens up that quickly, right? It takes some time, and then still, with all the best intentions, somebody might say, yes, I'm ready. Again, we keep on saying we've been so lucky with the owner that sold us the Podcast Consultant, because all the best intentions, then things where he realized this is actually harder than I thought it would be. I'm having a hard time letting go, but he really worked on himself and let go of the business. I think that was exceptional from him.
Yeah. I agree. And it does make me, it just makes me realize that there's a reason that, sort of selling a business and then maintaining operating control or vice versa is a really hard, sort of arrangement to figure out. And, maybe we'll figure it out. Maybe we'll do it at some point. I think I look at it, there's two ways. Yes, it's going to be hard, but actually the masochistic side of me that loves to go through those kind of hard things actually says like, well, yeah, but that's exactly how you're going to learn how to do it better, is by doing it and just like taking the reps. And so, one of the things like that struck me again, when I talk to these people who are looking at buying businesses, is like, there's so many of them that they always list off these reasons they haven't bought this company or this company or this company or this company, right? And there's always a million reasons, and they're good reasons, and they probably did dodge some bullets there, right? But like my argument has always been, and me and you have this internal, discussion all the time, like, man, let's just pull the trigger and then we'll see what we learn from it. Like it's not going to kill us, right? Like, and I know that I'm a little bit like maybe too flippant, but it's still like you have to have a balance.
Yeah, that's a very specific mindset, because again, when we talk about control, like, I don't know, let's assume you have somebody that has, I don't know, a big mortgage to pay, right? It's a loan, you got your mortgage payments, and then you giving over control to somebody else. But if profit decreases, you have a hard time, blah, 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 right? So I totally get it. But in general, like, you're certainly steering more towards it than me, but we both agree that taking the plunge and taking a risk is like long-term more viable, not just financially, but also just in terms of how I feel about life. Like, I could not imagine not taking any risks. Like, again, I wouldn't have gone to the US. I wouldn't have met my wife, right? It's I have so many strong signals that trying things is the way to success and, like, I don't know, a life I enjoy, that I feel like every time it gets uncomfortable, I don't want to just immediately say, nah. It's like, okay, actually, let's try doing this.
Totally. Well, so we're kind of getting towards the the end of the topics we had picked out here. Anything you're looking forward to next quarter, Manny? Anything that in the next few months you're jazzed about?
Well, yeah, I'm still looking forward to see hopefully more net new deals for Draft.dev coming in, like confirming that the direction you and I picked is working. I am looking forward to traveling to the US again, seeing family over there, and seeing you again as well over there. And in general, I'm looking forward to still enjoying the work that I'm doing, even though right now, like, we're going through not so easy times. But in general, I don't wake up in the morning dreading my day or anything. And I think it's a really privileged position. You can have a salaried job where you have a steady salary, but you hate it every day. I much prefer what we are doing, obviously. So yeah, how about you?
I think it's similar. I'm definitely feeling pretty well. I look forward to it, and I'm enjoying the process of refining product market fit and figuring out how to solve some of these very specific problems there. That's been fun, and it's a very what's fun about it is you can immediately see results as you try things, and so it's a very quick feedback loop, which I always find fun. I'm looking forward to exploring some more kind of, we've been hinting at this, and we'll get more specific maybe in the next quarter or two, like alternative ways to grow through acquisitions and mergers that we haven't explored in the past because of, the way we've been planning on doing it. But I think there's going to be some more, we'll just have to see where that goes, because there's a lot of things up in the air, and I'm learning a lot about how to, what's realistic and not. But yeah, it's been good. And I'm looking forward to seeing you as well, as, some of my family and things like that around the holidays. It's always fun. So last but not least, books. We both got our Charlie Munger reading in this quarter. What did you read?
I read the Almanac of Charlie Munger. I think I maybe mentioned it already in the last episode when I had started it. And I am reading still the essays of Warren Buffett, so very light reading. And I'm reading a book called The Lessons of History, which was recommended, I think, on the blog of Peter Kang. And my wife says, how about reading just a simple story instead of just always work topics? But that's what I'm doing at the moment. I got the biography of Ben Franklin and of JP Morgan lined up next. Cool. Which are super interesting.
Yeah, I bet. I've heard Ben Franklin is a very interesting dude. I haven't read a lot, but on him. I did read a few fiction books. I got really into Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child. I think the two authors, they do a bunch of kind of sci-fi action thriller books, very light reading. So I did read a few of those because that was just easy. But beyond that, I read the Tao of Charlie Munger, which one of my big takeaways there was he talks a lot about bubbles and speculation and the kind of risks involved there, and when things are really bubbly like that they are sitting on their hands and waiting. And it did make me think about, it just, this is something I'm always thinking about, is when is this AI bubble that we're currently living in gonna kind of blow, and what's that gonna look like? I don't, who knows? This is all speculative, and it's you can't worry about these unknown unknowns because it's just too abstract to do anything with. But yeah, I do think about that, and it makes me think about what that could shape for both our businesses. And then I also read The Guns of August, which is a history of the first 30 days of World War I. And man, talk about a dense kind of reading. It's very good and very thorough, but and more approachable than a lot of history, but it's still very dense and slow. So that took me probably 2 months to get all the way through, but very fun. Interesting. I knew so little, and still know so little about World War I, that getting those first 30 days, you really get a lot of the context and kind of lead up to it. And then the sort of key things that happened is Germany came into France and then got pushed completely back, and all within the first 60 days. It's pretty wild. So very interesting. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining, Manny. This is always fun to do this catch up. I enjoy it in addition to our many other conversations. Same here. Thanks everybody for listening. As always, we'll do this about once a quarter. And in the meantime, we'll see you in a regular episode in the next week or two.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you for watching this episode of Retain Trust. If you like this one, give it a thumbs up and subscribe on YouTube. It takes 2 seconds and it helps others find out about the show. And if you have questions or suggestions for a future episode, leave a comment. See you next time.